I never thought I'd be in her arms, feeling the heat between us in the middle of a crowded room. My heart raced. My mind screamed, "Stop," but every instinct told me to lean in. And I did. What happened next changed everything. And it wasn't supposed to happen at all. When my father suggested I take a short-term placement at his friend's company to learn the ropes, I had no idea what I was signing up for. The firm was pristine, every corner gleaming with glass and chrome, and I, Anna, in my neat pencil skirt and tailored blouse, felt like a small, slightly out-of-place puzzle piece in this vast, immaculate office. I knew my father's friend Mr. West from social gatherings, but I'd never met his daughter, and somehow that detail never registered as important until today. The first time I saw her, I understood exactly why. Clara West walked into the lobby like she owned the space, though there was a grace in the way she moved that made her seem untouchable, yet dangerously approachable. Her tailored emerald green dress clung in all the right places, and the subtle sway of her hips betrayed a confidence I wasn't sure I'd ever seen before, but it was her eyes, sharp, intelligent, and a little mischievous, that made me falter for a fraction of a second too long. "Anna," my boss's voice called me out of my daze. He was warm, familiar, almost fatherly in his tone, and I straightened up. "Welcome. I hope your father wasn't exaggerating when he said you could handle a challenge." I nodded, fighting the sudden flutter in my stomach. "Thank you, sir. I'll do my best." The workday began predictably. Phone calls, organizing schedules and answering emails, but every time Clara appeared, whether in passing through the hallway or stepping out of a conference room, I felt an odd tug in my chest. She seemed to notice me too, though I wasn't certain whether it was curiosity, amusement, or something else entirely. She gave a small, almost imperceptible smile once as she passed, her eyes holding mine just long enough to make me question whether I'd imagined it. Lunchtime brought the first subtle interaction. I was retrieving coffee from the small kitchenette when she leaned against the counter, casually crossing one leg over the other, and I realized she had been watching me. "You're new," she said, her voice low, teasing. "I've seen you hovering around all morning, nervous, or just curious." I laughed lightly, trying to mask the sudden heat creeping into my cheeks. "A little of both, I guess." She tilted her head, studying me. "I like curiosity. It keeps things interesting." Her lips curved into a smile that sent a shiver down my spine. That afternoon, I was sorting through a pile of files when she appeared behind me. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the proximity of her body made my heart hammer in a way that was ridiculous for a professional setting. She leaned closer, pretending to inspect a document. "Do you always organize folders like that?" she asked, her breath brushing the side of my ear. I blinked, trying to focus. Yes, it helps me keep track of everything." She laughed softly, a sound that made my stomach twist. "Good attention to detail is attractive, you know?" I swallowed hard, realizing just how much she was playing with me, and a part of me thrilled at it. I had never felt so visible, yet so completely out of control around someone 4 years older. Someone with power, charisma, and an ease I could only envy. By mid-afternoon, the tension became almost unbearable. She would show up unexpectedly in my workspace, leaning casually against the doorway, or linger slightly too long when passing by, each accidental touch, her hand brushing mine when handing over a report. A shoulder bump in the hallway sent an electric jolt straight to my chest. And yet, she never pushed too far. Everything was a tease, a whisper of something I wasn't quite ready to name. When the workday finally ended, I was mentally exhausted and emotionally shaken. I walked to the lobby, pretending to check my phone, and caught sight of her one last time. Clara West was chatting with an assistant, her head tilted slightly, her smile infectious, and then her eyes met mine. That same mischievous glint was there, and she gave a slow, deliberate nod in my direction. I wanted to stay longer, to approach her, to ask something, anything, that might justify the butterflies wreaking havoc in my chest. But instead, I gathered my things and walked out. Heart racing, mind spinning, and a single thought echoing relentlessly. Who is she, really? And why does she make me feel like this? That night, I lay in bed, replaying every interaction, every glance, every small touch. Part of me told myself I was imagining it, overreacting. Part of me knew better. Clara West had arrived in my life like a storm. Unexpected, irresistible, and entirely forbidden, and I had a sinking feeling that this was only the beginning. The next morning, I arrived at the office feeling strangely restless. My father had assured me this placement would be purely professional, a chance to understand business from the inside, but my thoughts kept drifting to Clara. Her smile, her teasing words, the subtle electricity in the briefest touches. It was impossible to focus on anything else. Mid-morning, she appeared in my office doorway, leaning against the frame with that same confident sway. "Morning, Anna," she said, her voice warm but teasing. "Did you sleep well, or are you still thinking about yesterday?" I blinked, caught off guard. I slept fine," I murmured, trying to steady my voice, though my cheeks betrayed me. Her eyes sparkled knowingly. "Good," she said softly, then she stepped fully inside and closed the door behind her. "I thought maybe you'd like a break. Coffee? Lunch?" I hesitated, aware that this was crossing an invisible line, but something in her gaze made me nod. Sure. We walked to a small cafe a few blocks away, and I found myself observing her like a student watching a master. Clara moved with purpose, her gestures fluid, each motion intentional, yet somehow effortless. She ordered with a casual elegance that made me feel like I was watching someone from a movie rather than a real person, and when she finally looked at me, her eyes held an intensity that made it impossible to look away. "So," she said as we sat opposite each other, stirring her coffee slowly. "You're my father's friend's daughter. I've met your father, of course, but I never knew you'd be here." She tilted her head slightly, giving me a sharp, assessing look. "I like that. There's something interesting about someone new." I laughed nervously. "Interesting? I'm just here to learn." She smirked, leaning forward slightly so that her hand brushed mine on the table. The contact was fleeting, but it sent a jolt straight to my chest. "You're already more than that. Curious, sharp, attentive. Most people around here are just expected to be perfect, and they fail. But you notice things. That's rare." Her praise made me flush. "I just try to do my best," I admitted, unable to hide the admiration creeping into my voice. Clara's smile softened. "I can tell. That's why I'm paying attention." She let her hand linger near mine a moment longer, as if testing a boundary without actually crossing it. "You're different from the usual crowd. Most people are intimidated by me or they try too hard. You're just yourself." I wanted to tell her how her words made my stomach twist in 1,000 ways, how I wanted to lean closer, feel her warmth, let the world shrink to just the two of us, but I swallowed hard and kept my tone casual. "Well, I guess you're used to having that effect." Her laugh was soft and musical, the kind that makes your chest ache. "I've never had anyone notice me this way," she said, almost shyly, though her posture betrayed her confidence. "Most people see me as untouchable. But I can tell you're curious about more than just business." My heart skipped a beat. Curious about more? The thought alone was dangerous. I guess I am," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. She leaned back in her chair, studying me carefully, a playful glint in her eye. "Good. Curiosity is a powerful thing, Anna. It can get you into trouble, or it can lead to something unforgettable." The way she said it, the way she looked at me, made the air between us feel charged. Every brush of her fingers against the table, every flicker of her smile, seemed deliberate, designed to unravel me slowly, teasing me with a thrill I had no right to feel. We lingered at the cafe for nearly an hour, talking about everything and nothing. Business, books, travel, the nuances of our respective lives, and yet beneath the casual conversation, there was a tension that hummed in every glance, every smile, every accidental brush of hands. It was intoxicating, and I found myself leaning in just to feel closer, just to inhale a little more of her presence. On the walk back, we took a slightly longer route, weaving through a quiet park. A breeze picked up and Clara's hair whipped gently around her face. She reached out, brushing a strand behind my ear, a gesture so tender yet intimate that I felt my knees weaken. "You're different, Anna," she murmured, her voice low, intimate. "I like that about you. Most people never see me for who I am, but I think you might." I wanted to respond, to tell her that I felt the same, that my chest ached with curiosity, desire, and admiration all at once, but I only nodded, my words caught in my throat. By the time we returned to the office, the tension had only intensified. She gave me one last look before slipping back into her world, leaving me standing in the hallway, trembling slightly from the encounter. Sitting at my desk, I replayed the entire afternoon in my mind. Every brush of her fingers, every teasing glance, every subtle smile, It all left me in a haze of longing and confusion. She was intoxicating, magnetic, and utterly forbidden. And yet I couldn't imagine avoiding her, even if I wanted to. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Clara West had entered my life like a spark in dry kindling, and I was already aflame. The night of the company's annual gala arrived, and I found myself nervously adjusting my dress in the mirror. A soft champagne-colored gown, elegant but understated, seemed appropriate, yet nothing could prepare me for the storm I was about to encounter. My father's words echoed in my mind. "Anna, remember, this is a learning experience. Be professional." Easy to say, impossible to follow when Clara West entered the room. The party was alive with laughter, clinking glasses, and the low hum of conversation among the city's elite. And there she was, Clara, radiant in a deep sapphire gown, her hair cascading over one shoulder, lips painted a daring shade of red that seemed to draw every eye in the room. She smiled when she saw me, a private, mischievous curl of her lips that made my heart stutter. She approached, weaving through the crowd with a casual confidence that made the world around her blur. "Anna," she said, her voice carrying just enough over the music to make it intimate. "I'm glad you came. You clean up nicely." Heat rushed to my cheeks. Thank you," I managed, trying to steady my voice as I felt the pull of her gaze. She always seemed to see me, the real me, underneath the polished secretary persona, and it was thrilling and terrifying all at once. We moved together through the party, exchanging polite nods and murmured conversations with colleagues and guests. Yet every glance she threw my way, every accidental brush of her hand, made my stomach twist in anticipation. At one point, she leaned in close under the chandelier's golden light, letting her perfume, soft, floral, intoxicating, wash over me. "You're tense," she whispered, almost teasingly. "You shouldn't be. Tonight isn't about work." Her words were a spark to the dry tinder of my emotions. I just don't want to make a mistake," I admitted, my voice barely audible over the music. Clara smiled, placing a hand lightly on my arm. "Relax. Trust me." Her touch lingered a fraction longer than necessary, and I felt my pulse spike. Later, we found a quiet balcony, the party's noise muffled behind the glass doors. The city lights stretched below us, and for a moment, it felt like the world had shrunk to just the two of us. Clara turned to me, her eyes gleaming in the soft glow of the lanterns. "You've been on my mind all week," she said softly. "I can't stop thinking about you." My chest tightened. "Clara," I began, but she silenced me with a look, a single raise of her brow that made my heart race. Without another word, she leaned closer, my breath caught as our lips met. Soft at first, tentative, but electric. Time slowed, the sound of the party, the city. The night itself seemed to vanish. I was consumed by the warmth of her mouth, the gentle pressure of her hands on my waist, and the undeniable pull between us. When we pulled back slightly, I was breathless. My mind spinning, I started, but she placed a finger gently over my lips. "Shh," she whispered, eyes dark with desire. "Not here. Not yet." I nodded, trembling, my body buzzing with a thrill I hadn't anticipated. Even in that brief moment, I realized something irreversible had begun. We couldn't undo what had started, and part of me didn't want to. Clara rested her forehead against mine, her breath mingling with mine. "Do you trust me?" she asked, and the intensity in her gaze left me without words. "Yes," I whispered, barely audible, yet full of certainty. A faint smile touched her lips. "Good, because tonight, I'm not done with you yet." I felt a shiver run down my spine, equal parts excitement and fear. The boundaries I had tried to maintain all week had crumbled in a heartbeat, and Clara was leading the way. My mind raced with possibilities, with what could and should happen next, but one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same. As the music pulsed faintly from inside, we lingered on the balcony, our bodies close, breaths mingling, and hearts racing in a rhythm entirely our own. Every nerve in my body screamed with the thrill of danger, the allure of temptation. And yet, beneath it all, there was something deeper, something forbidden but undeniably real. And then, with a mischievous glint in her eye, Clara brushed her lips against my ear and whispered, "Let's get somewhere more private." My heart nearly stopped. That one sentence promised everything and nothing all at once. The danger, the thrill, the irresistible pull of what we both wanted but weren't supposed to have. I knew in that instant, with her hand in mine, and that dangerous smile on her face, that tonight would cross a line I could never step back from, and I was powerless to resist. Clara's hand in mine felt like an anchor as we slipped out of the party. leaving the laughter, music, and glittering chandeliers behind. My pulse was erratic, each step toward the boss's private suite making the world shrink until it existed only between us. She led with an ease that made my chest ache, the kind of confidence that demanded surrender, and I wanted to surrender. The hallway was silent, illuminated by soft golden sconces. I kept glancing at her, heart thudding, caught between exhilaration and fear. Clara's gaze caught mine, and a teasing smirk lifted the corner of her lips. "Relax, Anna," she whispered. "Tonight is about us. Nothing else matters." When she opened the door to the suite, warmth spilled out from the dim lighting, soft shadows dancing on the walls. I stepped inside, my nerves alive, and felt her fingers brush mine. She closed the door behind us, cutting off the world entirely. "Do you trust me?" she asked again, her voice low, intoxicating. I nodded, unable to speak, feeling exposed but safe in her presence. Clara moved closer, and I realized she was taking the lead. Always confident, always certain, her hands traced lightly over my shoulders, sliding down my arms, mapping the tension I didn't even realize I carried. She leaned in, and her lips found mine once more, deeper this time, firmer. Demanding, I responded instinctively, melding against her, letting myself feel every spark of electricity that passed between us. Her hands guided me backward until my back met the edge of the chaise lounge, soft leather cool against my skin. Clara's movements were deliberate, teasing, each touch calculated to unravel me slowly. She whispered my name, and I shivered at the sound, her voice a mixture of command and tenderness. "Look at me," she murmured, and when I lifted my eyes, she was smiling, a little mischievous, a little possessive. "You're beautiful, Anna. Do you know that?" I swallowed hard, heat rushing to my cheeks. My words faltered, my rational mind fleeing in the wake of her intensity. Clara chuckled softly, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "Shh, you don't have to say anything. Just feel." And I did. I felt the warmth of her hands, the softness of her lips tracing mine again and again, the quiet thrum of desire threading through my body. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, deep, a crossing of lines I had never allowed myself to imagine. She leaned against me, our bodies close, and I felt a shiver of anticipation, a thrill of danger, and a profound connection all at once. Her lips trailed down my neck, teasing, making me tilt my head back instinctively. Every brush, every whispered breath sent jolts of sensation straight to my core. Clara's hands were everywhere, guiding, holding, commanding, yet never rough, always tender enough that I surrendered willingly. "You're trembling," she murmured, her voice low, teasing, dominant. "You like this, don't you?" I nodded, barely able to speak. "Yes, I can't stop." Clara smiled against my skin, a flash of triumph, and then paused, letting me catch my breath. Her eyes met mine, smoldering, and I felt a strange mix of vulnerability and exhilaration. She held me close, whispering soft reassurances, reminding me that I was safe even as we crossed every boundary I had known time lost meaning. Minutes stretched into an eternity as she explored every inch of my reaction, learning what made me shiver, what made me gasp, what made me surrender entirely. It wasn't about rush or obsession. It was about presence, about connection, about letting two people exist in a space of intimacy and trust that was completely theirs. Later, we collapsed onto the chaise, breathing in sync, hearts hammering, skin warm and flushed. I rested my head against her shoulder, listening to the steady rhythm of her pulse, letting myself be utterly unguarded. "I've never felt like this before," I whispered. Clara kissed the top of my head, soft, lingering. "Neither have I," she admitted. "You're incredible." We stayed entwined in the quiet, savoring the stolen intimacy, the thrill of forbidden passion, the depth of connection we had just crossed. There was no hurry, no embarrassment, only the warmth and safety of each other's presence. Finally, the distant hum of the party reminded us the world outside still existed. Clara's fingers traced my jaw gently, tilting my face toward her. "Anna, this is just the beginning," she whispered, a hint of mischief in her tone. "And I promise I'm not done with you yet." My heart leapt. I knew she meant it, not as a fleeting whim, but as a promise of nights to come, of passion and tenderness interwoven, of boundaries blurred and trust built. And as I rested in her arms, I realized with a mixture of thrill and relief that this was the first night I'd ever truly let myself feel alive in someone else's hands. I closed my eyes, knowing that nothing could ever go back to the way it was before. Clara had claimed a part of me I would never get back, and I wanted her to. The morning after that unforgettable night, the suite felt different, warmer, safer, yet charged with the remnants of passion and intimacy. Clara lay beside me, her hair spilling across my shoulder, eyes half-lidded in contentment. For a moment, I simply watched her, my chest swelling with a mix of awe, affection, and the lingering thrill of our shared secret. "Good morning," she murmured, her voice husky, teasing, and utterly hers. I smiled, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "Morning," I whispered, heart racing. The world outside the suite felt distant, irrelevant. Nothing mattered except the soft warmth of her hand entwined with mine, the quiet rhythm of her breathing, the undeniable pull between us. Breakfast was an intimate affair, just the two of us in the sunlit kitchen, a contrast to the grandiosity of the gala the night before. Clara teased me endlessly, a mischievous sparkle in her eye that never failed to make my stomach twist in delight. I laughed more freely than I had in years, a lightness settling over me that made the office stress, the pressures of appearances, fade away. By mid-morning, we returned to the office. The elevator ride was tense, silent, filled with stolen glances and the memory of the night we had just shared. Each brush of our hands, each subtle touch against the small of my back, reminded me that the world had shifted, that lines had been crossed, and that my life was now intertwined with someone I hadn't expected to care for so deeply. Mr. West, Clara's father and my boss, was waiting in his office when I arrived. My pulse quickened, not with fear, exactly, but with anticipation. What could he possibly think of me now? Would he sense the changes in his daughter? I stepped inside, offering my most professional smile, bracing myself for the conversation I hadn't imagined I'd have. "Anna," he began, his tone measured yet warm, "I wanted to speak with you privately for a moment." My stomach tightened, but I nodded. Moving closer, he studied me for a long moment, then leaned back in his chair with a small smile. "I've noticed something recently, a change in Clara. She seems happier, lighter. I haven't seen her smile like this in years, and I have you to thank for that." I blinked, heart pounding. "Me, sir?" "Yes," he said, sincerity in his eyes. "You've brought something to her life that she needed, and while you may have crossed a few professional boundaries..." He paused, chuckling softly. "I have no objections to what's happening between you two. Truly, thank you for making my daughter happy." Relief and disbelief washed over me in equal measure. My throat tightened as I whispered, "Thank you, sir. Words failed me, overwhelmed by gratitude and the surreal weight of the moment. When I stepped out of his office, Clara was waiting, leaning casually against the doorway, eyes sparkling with her usual confidence. I hurried over, wrapping my arms around her in a tight embrace, feeling the familiar warmth that had become my anchor. "You did it," she murmured into my shoulder, a smile tugging at her lips. "We did it. We did," I echoed, heart still racing. The days that followed were a delicate dance between office professionalism and private affection. Clara and I stole moments in hallways, whispered across meeting rooms, and shared lunches away from prying eyes. The thrill of secrecy persisted, but it was now tinged with security, a knowledge that her father, my boss, understood and even supported our connection. We discovered joy in ordinary things, coffee breaks with fingers brushing, walks through the park under soft sunlight, quiet evenings reading side by side. Each moment was intensified by the memory of that night, the forbidden, exhilarating night that had changed everything. Clara remained in control, confident and teasing, yet tender and considerate, always aware of my hesitations, always drawing me forward with patience and warmth. One afternoon, as we left the office together, Clara slipped her hand into mine. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked softly, her thumb brushing circles over my knuckles. "All the time," I admitted. "I never imagined this us. I wasn't supposed to feel this way, and yet..." She smiled knowingly, tugging me closer. "Neither was I. But sometimes the things we aren't supposed to feel are the ones we need most." I laughed softly, leaning into her warmth. "You're impossible, you know that. And yet irresistible," she countered, her eyes gleaming. "Don't fight it, Anna. Just let it be what it is." Even in the light of day, with clarity and acceptance surrounding us, the memory of that forbidden night remained electric, a reminder of the boundaries we'd crossed and the trust we had forged. I realized that the thrill of danger, the allure of temptation, and the depth of connection were all inseparable parts of who we were together. Clara squeezed my hand, and I knew we had found something rare. A love that was forbidden, yes, but undeniable. A bond strengthened by risk and reward alike. And as we walked toward the golden evening sunlight, I understood something fundamental. Happiness wasn't just about safety or approval. It was about surrendering to what you couldn't resist, trusting in someone to meet you halfway, and discovering joy in the most unexpected of places. I never imagined falling for someone I wasn't supposed to want, someone who challenged every line I thought I'd never cross. And yet, here I am, breathless, conflicted, alive in ways I never expected. Clara is mine, our forbidden moments etched into my heart, and the temptation lingers even now. Have you ever surrendered to something you knew was wrong but couldn't resist? Share your thoughts. I want to know if anyone else has felt a pull so irresistible it changes everything.